Welcome to the Are We Idiots Show, where we question the status quo on society's important issues while mixing in plenty of laughs along the way. Now here are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Rich Kroll.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Are We Idiots Show. As mentioned, we are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Richard Kroll.
Weave, great to see you. Happy New Year. You know, I heard you on New Year's Eve at midnight outside in the public air, banging your pots and pans, bringing in the new year.
I thought you would start off with a reaction to our new intro.
Well, I was going to get to that
Christopher Mooney.
So, you know, your brother-in-law, Grammy, Christopher Mooney, just redid the 2019 intro, and it does sound a lot less forced. It sounds like his natural, manly, masculine, testosterone-filled voice. Last year, I got a couple complaints that he sounded like he was trying to, sell cars at an auction.
But thanks to Graham for the new intro. It's a new year. It's a new show. We're going to be making some changes and making things better. And I thought, why not start the year with a bang and a new intro? And I'll just give you a hint there, listeners. There's a new outro as well. So you can, that's
Outro?
a little tease, an outro. Yeah.
Whoever uses the word outro.
We're communication specialists.
Is that
Rich.
Latin?
We're entertainers. We're using the lingo.
Well, Graham sounds great. Graham, thanks for the new intro and outro, according to Mark.
So we got a great show for you, everyone. Rich, do you have any tip of the day or any wisdom or anything?
Tip of the day, because if people heard your precursor that this is going to be about New Year's resolutions and goals, yes, I want everyone to do two things. Before you start your day or before you go to sleep, write down a personal and professional list of things to do. Prioritize them. Things that are absolutely have to get done, by noon or by 5, things that got to get done tomorrow or this week, and just things that got to get done, both in your personal life and your work life. I see too many people go to sleep at night, laying there, thinking about all the stuff they got to remember to do, worried about that they'll forget. They lose sleep, and we all need our sleep.
So write it down prior to that so your mind is at ease and you get a restful sleep.
Correct.
I like that because sleep is important. My father, Homer, out there, he used to say sleep is not sacred. And of course, now that we became adults, we always bust on him and say, actually, sleep is sacred. And studies have shown sleep is sacred. And he's kind of changed his tune now, saying, well, what I meant was too much sleep is not sacred.
So he basically went from getting 2 hours a night to 3 hours.
But Homer had a lot of wisdom over the years, and maybe he missed on that one. All right, folks, so on our show today, we're going to tell you a little bit about our new initiative for the show to grow in 2019. We'll do that fairly quickly. Then we'll do our Idiot of the Week award, and that is going to be from 2 submissions from listeners. We love that, so listeners, keep them coming. Send us at Are We Idiots Show. Send it to supporting listeners. Send it to suggestions at areweidiots.com. So there's lots of ways to get us that information. And keep submitting idiots. There's plenty of supply of idiots every week. And then we're going to talk about the importance of setting goals. And we originally talked about having it, the title of the show, New Year's Resolutions. But I kind of took a creative license, Rich, and changed it to the importance of goals because in our society, New Year's resolutions they've become a joke, because everyone knows a high percentage of them don't work. So we're going to change the topic of the show to importance of setting goals. But, of course, New Year's resolutions will come into it at some level.
I love your creativity.
Yeah, that's what I am. And then we're going to conclude the show with Mark and Rich going on the record with at least 2 of our goals individually for 2019. Sound good?
Sounds good. Did you change your voice as well for the new year?
No, I didn't. At least I didn't try to. Maybe it's the age creeping in.
You're going a little high-pitched at times.
Uh-oh. I have to go back and review this. All right, so folks, let's just talk real briefly about, we teased this at the end of last year, some of our goals and how you, our listeners, our loyal listeners, can possibly be involved for 2019 and beyond. So we've gotten a lot of great feedback about the content of our show, the rapport that Rich and I have, the kind of balance of edutainment, educating with obscure topics and important topics, but also mixing in some fun. A lot of people enjoy our show, and we'd really like to expand our reach to people that would also enjoy it. So if you like it and you know people that are like you, then they'd probably like it as well. So we want to do a couple of things. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking sponsorships or donations from individuals that want to help our show, and maybe they've derived value from listening to our content over the last year. That's been for free. There's been no commercials. So if you feel so led to sponsor our show and make a donation, we're going to be able to do that within a few weeks. We're also talking to potential show sponsors or advertisers. So if you have an online business and you'd like to reach our audience, which is a largely affluent audience, but that's one possibility. You can do a show sponsorship. You can talk to us about that, and supporting listeners at areweidiots.com is a good way to reach us there. And then lastly, since right now a majority of our audience, we believe, is more of the friends and family type, and a lot of it's based in the Southeast Pennsylvania area, perhaps at least in the short term until the show grows internationally, maybe if you have a business based in the Southeast Philadelphia region and you'd like to advertise on our show when the rates are low before we grow too much, well, come talk to us about that. That might be a good solution. So that's kind of the phase one in the spring, is kind of grow the audience, have some show sponsorships, take some donations for people that are so led, and start out with covering some of the costs of the show. There's cost involved here that we've absorbed, and we want to go out and potentially buy advertising on other shows, be sponsors of other shows to kind of grow our audience. So what do you think of that, Richie, before we move on?
That's great. Very, very good ideas. I like your style, how you don't beg people. But here's an interesting dynamic. Although we are pretty big in southeastern Pennsylvania, we also have a fairly large following in Iceland. No explanation.
That one guy in Iceland.
It's two guys.
Oh, there's the guy in Switzerland, too. Remember he wrote in?
The guy from Switzerland.
Yeah. We got Chicago. We got Newport Beach. We have listeners all over the place. But I'm just saying right now we still have a lot of friends and family as we grow the show. So, hey, looking forward to this journey with our audience. And send us your feedback, suggestions at areweidiots.com. And if you're interested in donating, we'd love to hear from you as well. All right, Richie, so we'll move on, and we're going to talk about Idiots of the Week. So I have one quick one and then one a little bit longer. So these were sent in by listeners. So 1, thief tries to steal bike outside police station, gets arrested. An Oregon man was arrested for trying to steal a bike from right outside the Gladstone police station. He was arrested shortly thereafter. And I'll break protocol here and show Rich. There actually was a security camera at the entrance of the police station focused on the bike rack. And a guy comes up in a hoodie as they're watching. And the cop just comes out after about 30 seconds of him trying to break the lock and arrests him. So that's nominee number 1.
You know what's great about that? How easy would it be for law enforcement if the criminals just came to you? Hey.
It's like a honeypot.
Yeah, we got an assault down on 3rd Street. We got a robbery, a fire on 5th Street. What if all the robbers and, assaulters and all the bad people just came right to the front of all the police stations?
It just, again, I've said it many times before, just the stupidity of people, it just never ceases to amaze. All right, Richie, I think you'll like this nominee a little better. Again, sent in from one of our listeners. Syracuse police arrested Torrance Johnson with a small amount of marijuana and accused him of hiding drugs in his rectum. The officers say they saw him shift in his seat and concluded that he put drugs up his butt. if that's the bar,
we're all in trouble.
Yeah,
I'm shifting in my seat right now.
Yeah, I know you got something up there.
I actually do.
They took him to St. Joseph's Hospital, where he was non-consensually x-rayed. When that revealed no drugs, officers told doctors to force sedation on Jackson and then put a tube and camera up his rectum.
This is unbelievable.
2 doctors actually initially refused to perform the procedure, but eventually Jackson was drugged unconscious and anally violated. I love the verbiage here. No drugs were found.
What about an eggplant?
No eggplants. And if your listeners don't know what that is, go back and listen to our last show. After Jackson was released, St. Joseph's Hospital billed him $4,600
Of course.
for the procedures.
Why wouldn't they?
So Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh, refused to comment. The judge who gave the warrant refused to comment. But essentially, the guy didn't even know what happened. He said he's not going to pay the bill. But basically, he was released from jail the following day. So he spent the whole night in jail after this, after he was sedated. There was blood in his underwear, not to get gross for the listeners. And he went to the emergency room, and the emergency room actually told him what had happened. So the nominee, of course, is the police station or the police person and the judge who ordered this warrant. But I mean,
how about the hospital?
Well, yeah, the hospital, but the hospital had to comply because it was a judge's warrant to be able to do it. But I mean, how scary is that when the cops can anally probe you for drugs and then not find anything, and then you get stuck with a $4,600 bill?
Send the bill to the police department. So
he's not paying, obviously.
This is why we have race riots and NFL players kneeling and everything else, because I assume it was I shouldn't assume that, but it sounded, maybe it was white officers in Syracuse and, with a black guy. Either way, I mean, it's just
outrageous.
It's outrageous. It's funny on one hand, but must have sucked to be him that night. I've paid a lot less to be anally.
That's a premium service, $4,600.
I've paid a lot less for that same anal. What was it called? Anally violated.
Anally probing.
So
what's your verdict?
Clearly,
on the new idiot of the week first idiot of the week of 2019?
Syracuse Police Department, the judge.
Anyone involved.
And the hospital that billed the individual versus the police station. All the above. How about the whole city?
And I don't think we should send them any money, just on principle.
I'm not sending them any money. I'm not even going to follow the University of Syracuse this year.
All right, so that was our first idiot of the week for 2019. All right, Richie, so now we're going to shift to talk about the importance of setting goals. And again, since it's right after New Year's, there's a tendency for everyone to set New Year's resolutions. Unfortunately, 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February, and the statistics may vary a little bit, but 90 to 92% of all New Year's resolutions will fail within the calendar year. So that's why I said earlier, New Year's resolutions have become a little bit of a joke that most people don't even intend to keep. But let's talk more broadly about setting goals and the importance of setting goals. And that can lead into New Year's resolution. We can use the terms interchangeably if we want. But let's first talk about the importance of setting goals just more broadly in society. Almost everything that has been good and that happens in the world, there's usually a plan behind it and a goal behind it. And, so whether there's, strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning, contingency planning, there's all kinds of plans that's how things get done. And no one seems to bat an eye in business or in government or military or whatever about that. But that's how things get done. You have to plan, and every plan has a goal associated with it. So let's talk broadly about that and what your thoughts are on that before we dig down into some minutia.
I think goals and planning are two of the most important things to achieve results anybody could do or consider. If you think about it, if you don't have a plan on where you're going and how to get there, how do you even know if you got anywhere? Right? So, and most people, unfortunately, I've learned, have a lazy streak in them.
Right.
And I read a statistic where only 8% of the people that do set goals actually achieve them. I don't know if that's 8% across the board or...
Well, that jives with the 92%. Yeah, right. Yeah,
that adds up. And I don't know if it's specific categories. Personally, I have 4 goal categories: personal, professional, physical or health, and spiritual. And I write stuff down every year. Now, again, and we'll get into the theory of it, but I think people are afraid to be accountable. They're afraid to acknowledge or recognize what they don't have or what they don't like about themselves or where they are or not in life. And if they write it down, it's
They're accountable.
They're accountable, and it could also be demoralizing. But gosh, if you don't have goals or make a plan to get somewhere, I don't see how you get anywhere, period.
And I wholeheartedly agree. So just for the benefit of the listeners, the most common New Year's resolutions before we move off of this are eat healthier, you mentioned that, get more exercise, save money or save more money, focus on self-care, meaning get more sleep, read more, make new friends, learn a new skill, get a new job, take up a new hobby, and then for 33% of the people, I don't plan on making any New Year's resolutions. So, so just by way of interest, most people are similar in some of their goals. Health, maybe it's a Maslow's hierarchy, a self-actualization thing, the hierarchy of needs. Health is obviously up near the top. And I think most people would agree that's probably the most important thing, whether it's spiritual health or physical health for everyone. So why is it what's the Kroller theory on why most people fail, or the top several reasons why most people fail to make goals and then, more importantly, keep them once they do make them?
I have a couple categories of reasons why. One, I think a lot of goals are not attainable.
Totally agree with that.
Right. So let's say I always use this example when I talk to friends, family, and it's related to working out and weight loss. Let's say you're the overweight guy, the extreme, obese overweight guy, and you weigh 500 pounds. Well, if you want to live and not get all sorts of diseases and heart attacks, etc., you probably have to lose 300 pounds.
Right.
If you write down on January 1st, lose 300 pounds, just thinking about that is probably so overwhelming. You haven't been able to lose any weight your whole life, and now you got to lose 300 pounds, or maybe a doctor says, hey, you got to get down to your high school weight of 200, or whatever the case may be. Right away out of the gate, it's a wrong approach, right? Where that maybe you'll lose 300 pounds over 5 years or 10 years. So you got to set attainable goals in time frames that are achievable. Otherwise, you'll mentally overwhelm yourself. So that's a big one, number one.
So can I just interject on that?
Please do.
So I agree with you on the attainable goal. They have to be realistic goals that could be attainable with a reasonable approach. But I actually think, and one of my goals, which we'll say at the end of the show, is I actually believe that part of being achievable is to set a longer term goal, because inevitably, I'll just reveal it now. So one of my goals for 2019 is to walk 1,000 miles, right? So that may seem like a lot, but I've broken it down to how many miles per day. It's 2.7 miles per day, right? But if I said to myself, instead of saying I want to walk 1,000 miles, say I have to walk 2.7 miles every day, well, there's going to be days where I just can't do that. I might be sick, I may be flying, I may be, whatever. And so I'll get discouraged real quickly that I didn't make my goal. You know what I mean? So I know that I can catch up and walk, 2 extra miles 2 other days and get it back. So within that context, I agree with you. But don't you think that giving yourself some leeway in how you achieve the goal is important as well?
Yes, but as you mentioned, you interjected, hence not getting my full explanation.
Oh, boy.
So,
I'm guilty of that a lot.
So I agree, right? But the point is, you have to have long-term goals and short-term goals, and you can't make either unattainable. Right. If you had written down 10,000 miles,
right? That's ridiculous,
right? So let's say it's an annual goal for the guy that has to lose 300 pounds to stay alive.
Right.
Let's put down 100 pounds.
Right.
And then how do I do that? 10 pounds a month.
Right.
And that, a pound every week or whatever. So you have the long-term vision of where you want to get to, but then you break it down in shorter-term goals, which leads to my number 2.
The activity required to achieve those goals.
Yes, the plan or activity and reviewing it on a regular basis.
Right.
Maybe it's daily, weekly, minimum on a regular basis. But it's not just, hey, I want to fly to the moon.
Right.
Okay, well, how the heck are you going to do that? So, we'll just keep using weight loss as a, walking as the kind of the round number thing. But So you got to look at this. I have my own weight loss slash body fat goals, and I look at it every day. And because I don't hit it every day, sometimes I don't hit it every week, but they've proven, who's they? They've proven that if you're not looking at this, posting it on your wall, having it on your as a screensaver, writing it down.
Having accountability, that's the key, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the more you look at something and the more you think about it and you plan how I'm going to get there. That's step 2 or step 3. Now you have to have a plan how to get there.
Right.
And a lot of people, they write something down, but there's no plan to get there. And then they're
Right.
like, well, I don't really know how to do it. And then they don't do it.
And then the accountability piece, I think, is key. That a lot of people fail to do that as well, because one, that comes to their integrity in some cases. It comes to the reputation. So whether the accountability is some kind of built-in reward or penalty or third-party accountability, I think that is actually the best. I don't know how you feel about that, but someone else that you have to report your goal progress to, I think that's a big motivator for people to have to be, for lack of a better word, embarrassed or rewarded and praised. I think that's another key component that people fail to plan in.
Great point. We are really doing well ham and egging today.
We're going to have to
because
disagree on something.
Pretty soon I'll disagree just to disagree. But I brought this up again. I've helped some friends over the past 2 years with weight loss and exercise goals. And
That's a teaser for next week's show, by the way.
we've made it financial. Well, in one case, we made it financial.
Right.
Like you win or lose on a quarterly basis. Another for a single guy was to find, an attractive girl. You do have to have a motivation or a carrot at the end of the
Carrot
stick.
versus stick. Yeah.
And again, it can be many different things, whether it's financial or, something, a bet with your wife or with your children, or you reward yourself. But yes, there has to be something, you have to have a motivation. It could be staying alive. It could be being there for your grandchildren or your children. There's many ways to do that, but that is another component. The last piece I'll say and add to this is don't try to boil the ocean, which is related to attainable goals. If you have 55 goals, you can literally paralyze yourself and then do nothing. There's somebody in my family or extended family that we are trying to help with goals and motivation, but there's like 25 categories they think they need to fix, and therefore not one ever gets fixed because it's, where do you start? It's overwhelming, it's paralyzing, and therefore the easy default is to do nothing.
A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Wow.
I may use that for my goal of walking 1,000 miles.
I'd like the voice you said that in too.
Very silky sweet.
Very silky.
So here's my other big obstacle that I believe people have to achieving goals, and is that at the end of the day, a lot of people are resistant to change, and people say they want to be a certain result, but in my mind, where you put your time is where you have your highest interest. And if you're not willing to change, then you really don't want it that badly. And this comes down to a little bit of tough love, but I believe there's kind of no excuses. Like if you really want to do something, you'll find the reason to do it. But a lot of people come up with excuses. And I'd like to hear your comments on that and how much that plays into all this.
Well, the famous saying, excuses are like the guy that just got anally violated. Everybody has one.
Right.
Hey, it's easy to make excuses. I've pointed the finger at other people or other situations, but then you got to slap yourself in the face. I love the saying, 90% of life is how you react to it, right? Only 10%
Is what happens to you.
is what happens to you.
Right.
And it's so true. Now we're getting into philosophical and spiritual and attitude discussions, but a lot of it starts with an attitude, positive or negative, or tough versus soft. And I have so many examples of, in even different generations. I believe we've become softer as a nation, where our great-grandparents and our grandparents were a lot tougher than us, our parents maybe. But a lot of that has to do with, and we've had shows about hard work and work ethic and belief systems and internal integrity and toughness. But a lot of this is actually, you have to have heart, energy, toughness. You have to be resilient. You have to, in order to achieve these goals. And a lot of that is innate with a lot of us, and a lot of it is learned, and a lot of it, we've enabled. We'll call, we talk about the millennial generation. We've enabled them to be soft.
Right.
But you do have to have an inner fire in your belly.
And I'll take this back to some of my coaching comments that I made to the teams over the years. And two of my favorite sayings were nothing worthwhile.
You only have two favorite sayings?
Two of my favorite sayings to the girls that I coached over the years were nothing worthwhile comes easy. So you shouldn't expect to do something stupendous or a big goal without it being difficult, right? So don't expect it to be easy. And I think a lot of people expect things to be easy because they've, like you said, especially younger generations, they've had it easier, so they expect things to be easier. So that's one. And two, successful people make a habit out of doing things that other people don't wish to do. And I love that because I think that's so true that, if you expect to do out of the ordinary things, you can't expect to do ordinary things. And so, losing, in that case, 500 pounds or 300 pounds, that's impossible unless you're entirely committed to that goal and willing to do whatever it takes to do it. And I think at some level, with any goal, that doesn't mean you'll achieve it, but the attitude of saying, I am going to pursue this with everything that I have, that's more important than the ultimate destination. The journey is almost as important as the destination.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
We got a lot of metaphors and
This
analogies.
might just be a show about famous sayings and metaphors. Listen, I think it starts, I'll put the blame on everything in life on parents, right? The formative years, 0 to 7. If kids don't see work ethic and planning and trying hard and fighting through adversity, maybe they won't. I've learned from a lot of my friends, being a late first-time father, and I've watched through their successes and mistakes. I'm trying to be a better father, not because I'm a genius, but because I'm
Definitely not because of that.
Thank you. I didn't go to Penn either, as you'll point out. I try to take what they've done well and replicate it, and what they've done badly and not replicate it. And one of the things is you got to let your kids do stuff and fight through tough times and learn on their own.
Yeah, that's a big one because we're going to have a show coming up in February or March on helicopter parents, which our generation would be guilty of. But continue your thought. I apologize for interrupting again.
It's becoming a theme for the new year. So just as something as simple as my 9-year-old, can you unload the dishwasher or fill the dishwasher? Seemingly simple to an adult, but a little overwhelming to a little kid with the 50 different things that have to go into the dishwasher. And Daddy, I don't know what to do. Or just do it. Just go do it. And I'll come in, I'll look at it. Well, okay, nice try. But this, she couldn't get half the dishes in the dishwasher. And I'll show her, okay, now let me show you how to arrange these things in a geometrical pattern. And look how we got it all in. And then the next time, instead of, I see a lot of parents go, stop already, I'm frustrated, it's taking too long. And they just go and they finish the job for their kids.
Oh, yeah. And this will come into the helicopter parenting show. But, I've seen it. Our kids' friends would have their parents go and fight for grade inflation for their kids. And, of course, if kids got cut from teams, they would go and fight to have their kid reinstated on the team. Or if their kids had a girlfriend or boyfriend and they broke up, they'd try to repair it. And my philosophy is, hey, let's have our kids go through trials while they're still under our roof so they can learn to deal with the ups and downs of life that'll eventually come as adults a little better and not have us there to bail them out the rest of their life. That's the goal of every parent should be to raise an educated, competent, intelligent, independent adult, and they need to be able to handle the ups and downs of life. So we're going off on a tangent, but I totally agree with you.
Well, it's a tangent, but it's related because I don't want to call them tricks, but as kids learn, hey, I can do this, and I can get better at something, and I can improve on something.
I can fail and get back up.
I can fail and get back up, which leads to confidence, which leads to belief in achieving a goal.
Right.
Which shows like I can start at A and get to Z. Start at mile 1 and get to 1,000 miles. Start at losing 300 pounds and lose the first 100. That starts with children's confidence and belief in achieving. So I think there's a foundation there. But ultimately, then you show them, you write stuff down. Pick something. What would you actually like to do? I'd like to make the team. I'd like to get an A in a subject. I'd like to get up earlier. And start with something. Help them formulate a plan to achieve it. And it's amazing to watch their little minds expand with, oh my gosh, that's pretty cool. And I'm getting better at something. And I can learn something new. And I can achieve, and then I think goals and planning are habitual.
They are. And the only thing I would put in as a qualifier, and maybe I'm different here, but I actually think that the process of setting goals, the striving towards a goal, the discipline required to try to achieve the goal are more important than the goal itself. Because in a lot of cases, the goal itself may be dependent on other factors, but the sheer exercise of doing everything that leads to potentially achieving a goal, I think is critically important. And you may not actually achieve the goal. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say that the goal in and of itself is the only thing that matters. I do think the process of getting to a goal or the potential of getting a goal is also important. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Both. I think ultimately without that goal, why even bother?
I didn't say don't set a goal. I said whether or not you ultimately achieve it is not the critical factor.
Well, it's kind of like the, close doesn't count except in horseshoes and hand grenades. There's another one. But
maybe I'm not explaining myself. I think that if you set 100 goals in your life and you go through the process of doing that, if you're doing the right things, you're going to achieve 75% of those. But you might not achieve 25% of it. I think you're better off overall. But you're not. If you don't achieve a goal, that's not a failure. If you've done everything up to it, I think.
I was trying to say yes and no. I agree when if your goal is to lose 100 pounds and you lose 98. Then you didn't hit your goal, but you sure got a lot of benefit out of it.
Right.
Or if your goal is to find a higher paying job. And you did, but it's not you learn a lot. Yes, I agree. Right. You learn a lot going through the process, but there are some goals where if you don't hit them, you actually lost. Like, I'd like to win the championship as a coach of a sports team.
Right.
If you fall short,
yes. It's a binary choice.
It's a binary choice. So I agree there's a lot to learn and a lot to gain from working towards a goal that you don't always need to achieve the goal itself, but sometimes you do.
And the last thing I'll say before we move on to our specific goals is in a lot of goal situation, especially long-term goals, you have to have contingency planning because, for instance, I'll just use this analogy. If you're a plane flying from Philadelphia to LAX, well, they have a route, mapped out, but a thunderstorm pops up or, turbulence or whatever. So they may have to go up, down, around, whatever. There's storms in life, right? So you have to be able to say, okay, well, this is where I was going. I had to go here, but now how do I get back on track? So, I think in our world where we are, the closest thing I can come up to is retirement. I've had this discussion with my buddy Dog. He's a big planner. And the reality is that we don't know what the stock market's going to return over the next 15, 20 years that we're going to be ultimately in retirement. And you can build models over long-term averages of saying the stock market's returned 7%. But in any 15-year period, it may be zero. So you have to have plan to go forward, but you don't really know how it will result. So what do you think about that? Contingency planning regards to long-term planning.
Absolutely. But that now you're getting into advanced. So for the people that don't do this, just start with your long-term goal and break them into shorter-term goals. But yes, advanced goals and planning is, okay, what if I don't hit this? Or what if I actually miss? But I tried. Now what do I do? I think that's a great...
To get back on track.
To get back on
You don't
track.
just quit. You just don't give up and say, "Oh, I won't make it." So now, what's the next best plan? You know what I mean?
Yeah. If I don't, let's say you wanted to do something in 3 months or 6 months or a year, and you don't. Well, let's set the new 3, 6, and 12 months, or whatever the new metric is. Or absolutely, that's important. It's a little advanced for people.
Did I confuse you there, Richie?
You did. And if you notice, I'm
was
shifting
very-
in my seat. And
Oh no!
I'm worried you're going to take me to a hospital. And
St. Joseph's Hospital in Syracuse. Here we come. All right, so let's conclude the show. Rich, I don't know if you want to go first or I'll go first, but a couple of New Year's resolutions or goals for this year. I've already revealed one of them was to walk 1,000 miles. And just to give the audience some background, last year, I'm a big walker because my knees are shot, my Achilles is shot, my shoulders are shot. I can't do anything other than walk, essentially, at this age. So last year, I walked 949 miles.
you missed your goal.
I did not have this goal last year. I had I didn't have it written down, but I did have a kind of a mental goal to try to get to that. Once I got halfway through the year, I noticed I was on track for that. I said, well, maybe I can make 1,000. I didn't make it. So this year, I'm definitely going to make it. And that breaks down to approximately 2.7 miles of steps per day. And that's one of my goals. And I have another goal, but I'll let you go with one of your goals.
I was going to say, you said, do you want to go first or I'll go first? Then you went over.
Well, because I had already kind of revealed it, so that's why.
That's your dominatrix side.
That's it.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, 4 categories I look at going into each year: personal, things that I want to get done in my personal life, whether it's family related or volunteering my time. That's one category. Professional, obvious. Where do I want to get in my job? I have my own quotas and my sales numbers I got to hit. How am I going to get there? Spiritual, I'm always analyzing and researching, what does God mean to me? And, what does this bigger universe mean to me? And
If you figure that one out this year, let me know.
I never figured it out.
That's a tough one.
I never figure it out. And then 4th is physical or health. So physical and health, although I am not fat, I get overweight at times. I still lift weights. So when I get overweight, it's kind of a thickness look, not a slovenly beer gut look. But every year I pick a new goal for my weight as I try to get closer and closer to, say, my high school weight, which obviously, as we get older...
You haven't seen that in a while.
I haven't seen that, nor will I. But and I try to relate it to body fat because you can lose the wrong type of weight. But anyway, so every year, it's more of an overall health goal that I look at. What am I eating? Body fat content, overall weight. Because as we all know, you mentioned your Achilles, your knees, your shoulders. With less overweight type of bad weight on your body, the better your joints will feel and the better your overall health. So that's one I always...
So are you going to share a goal, or are you just going to lay it out there and not put anything behind it?
Last year, I set a goal of losing 20 pounds, and I lost 17.
That's good.
Now, here's the cool thing about that. If I had set a goal of losing 30 pounds, it would have seemed a little overwhelming. A year later, I've already upped my benchmark, so now I can actually get to that. So I want to lose, I'm going to say call 20 again, but I'm already there because of last year's benefit. So to your earlier point.
So what's your goal for this year? What is your goal for this year? I
You're
want to put you
looking
on
for
the record.
specific numbers?
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, I had to put a specific number of 1,000 miles out there.
I want to get down to a weight of 217 pounds.
There we go.
Which would be, for me, probably close to 10% body fat.
Okay. So that's one of your goals. You want to do the other one, or you want me to do my
You
other
go
one?
next. You go
Okay.
next.
So as Rich knows, I'm a pretty voracious consumer of content, meaning stuff on the web. I listen to 20 podcasts a week. I listen to a lot of documentaries and all that stuff, but I am not a very avid reader of books. I think last year I only read one book. So I have a goal of reading 4 books in 2019.
I
In
read
fact,
4 books over vacation.
I'm going on the record here. I think this is something that I can improve on. There's my first book right there that I'm going to start reading, and I'm going to read 4 books. Now, that for a lot of people that may be a joke, but again, I read a lot of stuff and I consume a lot of information. I just don't sit down with books very often, and so I'm going to do that. So I have 4. I have to read 1 a quarter, and I have to read 4 books in 2019.
Well, I recommend that you learn how to read faster because
see cat run dog chase.
Don't tell your professors at Wharton that you don't read books. But that is a good.
Oh, we have a president who hasn't read books, so that's
true.
a little scary.
All right.
So what's your next one?
My next one is spending more of my available time, which is not a lot to begin with, in more meaningful ways with my wife and daughter.
Be more present.
Be more present.
I love that.
Thank you. And go back to that voice, that
present.
soothing voice.
Be more present.
So I noticed that I spend a lot of my leisure time, when I'm just trying to unwind and just get away from the world, watching and reading about sports, watching games. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's pretty useless, right? So I'm going to be watching and involved in sports that do me no personal good, other than sometimes aggravate me when my teams lose. And I'm going to spend more time, whether it's just taking walks with the wife or reading a book with my daughter, or I'm doing a puzzle right now with my daughter, a 1,000-piece puzzle. And it's really cool how we plan and spend time and set a goal of finishing this puzzle. So stuff like that.
Maybe you'll have to be reading to me by the end of the year.
That is on my list.
to get my 4th book done. I'll be calling you December 26th of next year. Rich, I'm not going to make it. All right, so any closing comments on planning for our show before we conclude the episode, Richie?
Folks, set goals. It really helps. Write stuff down every night. Write stuff down. Otherwise, you won't go to sleep. But then make little micro goals, right? If I want to lose 20 pounds this year, break it down. That's basically 1.5 pounds a month, which is, when you word it that way, that seems pretty easy.
Right.
Break it down into weekly, monthly goals. Have your long-term annual goal.
Have accountability built in. Have rewards. Have penalties built in. Tell someone your goals. That's what we did today. We told people our goals. We're on the record. And you're going to know it.
You will take that 8% success rate to 9 or 10%. You will be part of the success.
Don't expect it to be easy. Nothing worthwhile comes easy, as Coach Weaver once said.
Coach Weaver.
All right, folks, make sure you plan in our next show when we talk about diet and exercise. And Rich has been wanting to do this show for a while now. As he already mentioned, he's helped other folks in this area. And by the way, I love to go to Italy and Greece, and the Mediterranean diet was again voted as the best overall diet. Just so we can do that. So I'm the tourism bureau for Italy and Greece. But anyhow, I know one of our shows early on dealt with obesity. That's not what we're talking about on this show. We're going to talk about diet and exercise. Obesity obviously is part of this equation at some level, but we're mostly talking about diet and exercise. So make sure you tune in. It's going to be a great discussion on our next episode. And as always, please remember, if what you see or hear sounds idiotic, then we're just the guys to help you sort it out. See y'all next episode. Take care.
Thank you for listening. Please download, subscribe, share, and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and also our website.